I guess I'll go ahead.
Yeah, no, you go.
I'll take that one, or at least start it off. Audience-based buying in TV is definitely sort of increasing, but I think we shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the vast majority of TV budgets, certainly the ones that were committed in the last upfront, are still guaranteed on Nielsen, or at least are guaranteed at the top level on Nielsen with sort of a commitment to sort of buy in a more advanced fashion as sort of the date to air approaches. Having said that, what certainly we saw at Dish was an increasing prevalence for brands and agencies and advertisers to put money from the scatter budgets towards advanced TV or set-top box-driven initiatives in a variety of ways, in the hope that it would inform what they do the next upfront. And there are a variety of reasons we can go into why that's the case, but I think most of the audience-based buying on sort of national TV is still relegated to the planning phase. It's not being transacted on in sort of an audience-based fashion. So certainly with TV and sort of the offshoots of sort of premier programming going on to online video like Hulu or Sling TV and such, it's important to remember that TV in the traditional marketing funnel sits at the top in the awareness bucket. So any marketer that has a sort of soft goal for raising awareness is still going to like Nielsen, because there aren't that many hard KPIs to measure, right? P&G's biggest customer is not you and me, it's Walmart, right? So Walmart demands that certain number of GRPs go to a certain market for that product to get top shelf placement. So there's a whole ecosystem that is sort of evolved around GRPs and markets and such to raise awareness that in turn drive intent and purchase. To what sort of Aidan was saying, if you're a marketer that is selling a $20,000 luxury car, yes, it makes sense to pay $300 CPMs on TV or online video or wherever else, right? But just about everyone else is trying to sort of ensure that whatever message you are sort of putting out there is delivered to as many people as possible. And Nielsen does a flawed but decent job at it, as decent as anyone else. So it's sort of a oxymoron that I don't know if oxymoron is the right word, but the more sophisticated your targeting gets, the more difficult it is to spend $50 million on media. On TV, you can pick up the phone, call an account executive at Viacom, and spend $50 million for the next 3 months, and it'll work. But if you have like a fine-grained list of 500,000 people you want to reach, and you have a large budget to go against, good luck spending sort of vast amounts of money trying to reach them in a consistent, non-fraudulent fashion. And that's the conundrum that sort of we're in. That TV, if you sort of look at what the Procter & Gamble CMO said, the better we got at targeting, the worse the outcomes were. So, well, we must be doing something wrong here, or we're not thinking about this in the best holistic fashion. So, what we're seeing in the marketplace is there's sort of activity at sort of the two extremes, right? There are people who are trying to sell cars, trying to sell, high-end luxury items where there is enough return on the investment that justifies, the kind of services that Merkle offers or Experian or others, to sort of design your segments, deploy them on, and go through the motions of sending it to a Dish or a Direct or whoever else, and then see the ROI on it. At the other end of the spectrum, where it's a $2 toothpaste that you're trying to sell, it's not that their customer is anyone with teeth. It's they know who's going to buy in the next 2 months or 3 months or so forth. They just don't have a cost-effective way of reaching just that person. So the targeting that then comes to bear is more psychographic. Can you do some primary research to find out what informs people's toothpaste buying habit? Is that the thing that they're going to cut back on if they lose their paycheck? Stuff along those lines is what we're seeing being brought to the table. It is still fairly touchy-feely, but it's better than P18 to 49. I forget where I was the other day, but I saw a statistic that said, in order for a person to be convinced of a product or a utility or whatever it is, they need to see it like 5 to 6 times from 4 or 5 different channels, right? So if you assume that TV is one channel on which you're supposed to sort of deliver a message, to Loong's point, it's how do you then sort of map the customer journey to what was being presented earlier? Like, how do you sort of take the customer on just in the awareness phase from TV to maybe Facebook or Snapchat or wherever else they're consuming these things, give them a different message from a different source, so it's not the same person saying my toothpaste is great over and over again, and how do you track that? And it starts getting interesting because nobody has 100% coverage on all your audiences from a measurement standpoint, right? So Samba, for instance, can measure a certain sliver of the audience, and then you go on to Google and Facebook, and they probably can measure a certain other sliver of the audience. How do you put those two together and start to sort of create the customer journey that you have in your mind, but you really cannot sort of plot on a piece of paper if you wanted to see if X customer is going down that journey without having some disparate signals along the way, right? So that it's hard. It's not easy. I will say this though, so that there are two ways you can do measurement, right? There is the bottoms-up attribution, multi-touch attribution as it's called, but just as effective is the top-down, mixed models. And 2 or 3 years ago, the rage was Facebook and Google are now figuring out how to sort of map their media back to GRPs. It was in response to the need to sort of have that be fed into the mixed model so that at least they could get credit for what they're trying to sort of do, right? So the smartest marketers, at least in my view, are doing both of those things. They're using the multi-touch attribution to identify which channel is performing how where. But at the top level, is my overall marketing spend driving results is still being answered in a mixed model sort of fashion. In my mind, that's the secondary question, right? I think there are marketers in this room, there are advisors in this room. Who's willing to transact on something other than Nielsen? Like who's willing to put their money where their mouth is, right? Put $50 million against Comscore on a national TV campaign. Then we'll talk about what Nielsen's going to do. Just do it, man. I mean, we've been talking about this for like a decade now. What's stopping you? Like, what's stopping you putting $50,000 on a campaign that doesn't use Nielsen? Okay. And do something interesting. Like everyone has research budgets. Just do it. I mean, use addressable TV if you don't think national TV is the right platform. But you just need to start doing it. So.